basic survival. I'm a big survivalist guy, like DNA. Why do we act the way we do? And if you think about it, humans have evolved over modern humans 40,000 years, and about 99.9% of that time we were camping out. I mean, we lived a wild life, and things were hard, and it wasn't easy to survive long enough to have kids. So, one of the survival instincts that humans have is that we want to join a tribe, family, a clan, become a team, so to speak, because it's safer. We have security in that. So, our ancestors all lived long enough to have kids, or they would not be our ancestors. So, all of them passed on these join up and belong type of genes. And that's why we as humans right now want to join and belong, and it's a part of who we are. The people who were lone wolves, who didn't want to be, they rejected tribe, family, clan, team. They very likely did not live long enough to have children. So they're not our ancestors. So we come from a long line of conformists. The other thing, though, and this was also a survival thing, is that we're going to compete for status. The competition is like two different ways. One is our team, family, clan, whatever, against other clans. That wasn't always positive because that's like war and stuff like that. And the other is internal competition, that we wanted to be valuable to our group. So we competed. If we were hunting, we wanted to be the best hunter. If a woman was gathering fruits and vegetables, they wanted to be good at it. So there's this competition gene too, because people who didn't compete, who didn't want to be good, they were of no value. That's why we record, rank, and publish. That's why my teams, first of all, it is a team. Everybody on these spreadsheets belong to my team. So I'm tapping into that belong thing. But we're also recording, ranking, and publishing numbers. And people are maybe different in different things. They can compete against former self. They can compete against their friend. But we need to tap into both of those things. Belong to a team and compete for status. Lessons from my dad. My dad is turning 88 in a couple weeks. He is severe dementia now. He's basically been dying for about 10 years. It's been a long, long, terrible process. 10 years ago, he's one of the healthiest 78-year-old men I've ever seen in my life. And now he weighs 129 pounds and is really, really struggling. But I look back, and one of the weird things my dad taught me, he was born in 1935 and basically raised through World War II. And so there's a lot of war stories my dad used to tell me. But the thing that struck was, if you're ever like in a war and you see a live grenade, dive on it. He wanted me to be the type of guy that put the team above everything, that was willing to sacrifice his guts, his life, to jump on a hand grenade. And this is something that actually happened a lot of times in World War II. And those guys were heroes that did it. Of course, they didn't survive, but they were looked at as heroes. And there was a lot of hero type of stuff that came out of World War II that my dad was really tuned into. And of course, if you go back to what we were just talking about, this is wanting to belong. And maybe even wanting to have a status for being a hero, being somebody that had the courage to sacrifice himself for the group. This picture is kind of funny. Dad was always a well-dressed basketball coach, and he gave referees hell. And obviously he's given referees some hell right here. My dad's one of the greatest competitors I've ever seen in my life. He was a competitor to the level of being a fighter. He absolutely wanted me to be the type of guy that, as a basketball player, would dive on loose balls. In football, would give up his body for the team. And once again, this is part belonging and part status. He saw that non-competitors just didn't care. He didn't want to be a non-competitor. He used to teach me if there's a fight that breaks out, be the first guy off the bench. I don't know if this is very good, but then again, diving on a grenade's not very good either. Getting pissed off in basketball games not very good. But he grew up as a fighter. He came from a bad home, kind of raised by the streets, unsupervised, government housing, working poor, and he just had such a strong feeling about being on a team. I don't know if there's ever been any human that ever loved his teammates or as a coach loved his players more than my father did. And he used to tell me, if one of your teammates get in a fight, you be the first guy out there. You defend them. You throw punches. Now, that's not very politically correct anymore, but that's the way he grew up, and that's what he taught. Dad was wrong about this. This is not a feed the cats thing. This is my dad when he's about 28 years old. And check out the sled. He was an offensive line coach in football. Check out the sled that they were pushing back in 1968, made of wood. Hell, he probably built it. That's the way people did things back then. But he believed that practice should be so hard that the games feel easy. And everybody kind of just went along. And I think 80% of the coaching population still feels that way. Now, Feed the Cats is the opposite, where we want the games to be hard because when we do that, we're able to perform in practice. When we're able to perform in practice, we get better at playing the games. And there is magic in a game where if you love what you're doing, you're fresh, you're athletic, you're well coached, all those things, you're going to do just fine when you get tired. Let yourself play tired. There's no reason that we should take the day after a game off, but then never recover during the week. When the practices are actually harder than the games and we're not going to recover during the week, that's a downward spiral. And anyway, he had that wrong, but by him teaching me that, I evaluated, experimented with other things, worked out pretty good. This is my dad was 5'11", and this guy was 7'4". But anyway, Dad did do one thing right, and that was during the week of a big game, instead of doubling your workload, you back off. So even though he believed practice should be really, really hard, and that would make the games easy, he also kind of understood that if you really want to perform in the game, it might be a good idea to back off and get really fresh and athletic that week. So in a way, he was on to something. Practice skills when fresh. Unlike so many basketball coaches who believe you should shoot free throws at the end of practice because it's good to learn how to shoot free throws when you're tired. It's intuitive to do that, but he believed that you were developing sloppy habits. So he said, practice skills when fresh. And if you think about it as a track coach, I can't imagine running somebody a 3-mile workout and then tell him to go pole vault. He might kill himself. You must pole vault when fresh. Same thing with running the hurdles. If you're a tired hurdler, you can't even get to the first hurdle in 8 steps. If you are tired, you'll be too tired to 3-step in between those hurdles that are 10 yards apart. So any type of high skill activity, we need to really be fresh as we can be bouncy, be alert, all those things. The whole idea that we're going to pre-fatigue a football team or a basketball team or a track team in order to practice tired just is the opposite of what we should be doing. And then a weird quirk of my dad was he never carried a wallet. He never had money. He never had money as a kid, as a college student, and he never had money as an adult. He literally would bring his paycheck home and give it to my mom, and he didn't know where the bank even was. He didn't know how much money we had in the bank. He didn't care. He was a guy that lived without money. Crazy story. He came home one Friday, and like he would do sometimes, say, we need new tires to my mom. And I think she about cried and said, do you think money grows on trees? And my dad got pissed off, and they didn't talk like for the rest of the night or something. And here I was, like 13 years old, and tuned into everything that my parents said and did and all that kind of stuff. So the next day, he's speaking at a basketball camp in the summer, and he goes and speaks. He was a great, great public speaker, the best I've ever heard. And he spoke for 30 minutes, and the guy who was running the basketball camp was very appreciative and handed him a check for $25. And $25, like 50 years ago, was a ton of money. And my dad handed it back to the guy and said, pay it forward. I don't need your money. Pay it forward. And I thought, what in the hell? I got in the car with him. I said, Dad, don't we need new tires? He said, yeah, we probably should have kept that. But that was him. That was him. And to this day, I love to have an opportunity to do something nice for somebody and say, pay it forward. I talk about my dad being an influence on me. I hope I'm an influence on my 4 kids. My wife and I were school teachers that raised 4 kids, and we were broke, bankruptcy in 2004. We survived hard times. But when my son Quinn, my youngest, got his first full-time teaching job, coaching job at Andrew High School, I think it was like 6 years ago, I wrote an article called 101 Bits of Advice from an Old Man to His Youngest Son. And these things, I try to be short and quippy. I'm not going to give you all 101. I'm just going to give you like the first 20. I said be loyal first because he has a tattoo on his arm. Quinn has a tattoo that says loyalty. And then number 2 is a conflict. Because loyalty is good unless you're being loyal to something that does not deserve your loyalty. An idea that should be changed. A person that is wrong. So I think, you need to be loyal, but you also need to be rebellious. I'm huge on reading. I just think that life's too short. We have to read and learn. And I think you need to listen. Gosh, everybody wants to talk. Nobody wants to listen. Talk is easy. Listening is hard. Live big and bold. This is kind of what my dad taught me. That you want to be a competitor. You want to be the first guy off the bench in a fight. You want to speak up when things are wrong. Visit people who are good at what they do. There's a lot of people that are really good at what they do, and it doesn't matter what they're good at. Just being around people who are talented, who do things well, those things rub off on us. Ask lots of questions, and then question all the answers. Think about that. Don't be afraid to follow up. Challenge people when they give you the answer. The facts, experts have always been wrong. And I think it's important to challenge all the answers. Become interesting. That means develop habits, read. And when I say develop habits, I should have said hobbies, maybe habits that are interesting habits. You do not want to go through life as the most boring guy in the room. And then stay interested. And by the way, these things work together. If I am interested in you, you think I'm interesting. And if you're interested in me, I think you are interesting. And I think there's a lot to say about, like family relationships or, husband, wife, being interesting and being interested, or kind of a life hack. Write. I think that writing distills your thoughts. I became a writer about 10 years ago. I don't think I ever wrote anything until I was in my 50s. And now I've written like 300 articles. I've written a 400-page book that's not been published. I think writing is really important for our development as humans, as coaches. Take notes. I tell people to sit in the front row and take notes. I don't care if the notes mean anything to you or not. It keeps you alert when you're sitting in the front row. You catch the spirit of the speaker. Um, you become part of the show. If you sit in the back and you're playing with your phone, of course, I guess you can take notes on your phone. But if you're sitting in the back, your mind's going to wander. So sit in the front row and take notes. Which I've already said this, I guess. Sit in the front row. Drink lots of coffee. Man, I don't know how people can really be at a performance level, all their waking hours without some caffeine. Caffeine is good for me, and so I tell people stay caffeinated. Declutter. Clutter is a scourge of modern existence. That means everything has a place. So put things away. You should always make your bed in the morning. So when you're tired at night, you have a bed to crawl into. That's the way it should be with your home, your car, everything. Declutter, because if you live in clutter, I think you probably have a cluttered mind as well, and we don't perform well with clutter. Organize. That's how you declutter. You organize. You're always thinking about how to organize things. Otherwise, you're wasting a lot of time. Simplify. Man, those three things kind of go together. Declutter, organize, simplify. If you have too much stuff, you're going to be cluttered. When you become an essentialist, you get rid of things that are unnecessary. Tell stories. Every great coach I've ever known told stories. It's one of the greatest things about our life as a teacher and a coach is that we have great stories to tell. And if you can't tell those stories, you're robbing the people around you of some really good stuff. Respect your elders. I wasn't very good at this when I was young, but I understand now that treating older people like dinosaurs when they've gone through stuff that we can't even imagine is no way to live our life. And maybe if we respect our elders, maybe young people will respect us someday as well. And connect with kids. I think there's too many teachers and coaches that talk bad about kids. Connect with them. Stay immature. Don't become like the kids' parents that only hang around with adults and become boring, adult-driven people. Stay young. So the best thing about being a teacher and a coach is that we get to stay young. We need to stay hip. Now, we'll never be as hip as a 16-year-old, but at least we won't be a foreigner to the ways of kids. Go big or go home. This is kind of interesting. Is the live bold thing, the thing that once again kind of ties back to stuff my dad taught me. To be a fighter and to be the guy. I used to say on the first day of chemistry that chemistry is going to be your favorite class. You know how crazy that is? I mean, chemistry sucks for almost everybody. It's hard. It's dull. It's boring. And this is not a Photoshop picture. This is me juggling fire. And I used to do crazy things like this to entertain and to make boring things a little more exciting. And as soon as you say something like this, you have a tendency to want to live up to it. And then you also get your kids to lean forward like, what's this guy? How's this guy going to do this? And they almost start pulling for you. They almost want you to make chemistry their favorite class. And I, do the same thing in your sport. That you're going to love practice. You're going to love track. You're going to love football in the summer. One of the boldest people I've ever met is John O'Malley. John's 20 years younger than me. He went to the same college, Knox College. And if you don't know anything about track and field, this may not be, all that special for you, but he's just had amazing success. 2 national champions in cross country. His 4x8 times, or nobody's done what he's done. And I wrote an article about John that is probably worth reading. It's called Divergent Thinking Inside John O'Malley. One of my favorite stories in the O'Malley article was he was dating a girl named Heather, but they were going to different schools, and they had dated other people and everything. But it was getting to the point where he kind of, like, I think this is going to be my girl, And so he said, let's go to a U2 concert. It was at Rupp Arena. It was like a 6-hour drive for both of them. He says, I'm going to get you on stage. He actually said that. And so she said, yeah, okay, I'll go. And with a lot of work and a lot of boldness, he ended up with Heather in the front row at a U2 concert with 24,000 people. And this is Heather on stage with Bono. And, I don't know of many people that pull something like that off. But I think the good coaches kind of do. They think big, they act big, they get things done. And it was a year or two later when they went to another U2 concert, and they both got on stage, and he proposed to Heather on stage at a U2 concert. You can't make that kind of stuff up. And I think people that are able to pull things off like that, they might be able to be good coaches. And so instead of being a shrinking violet, stand up strong and speak out and make wild statements and then go get it done. I'm kind of that way too. My first day in Harrisburg, Illinois, I went there to coach. It's a poor town, a coal mining town. And I moved into my trailer one hot day in August. Yes, it was a trailer. I lived in a trailer for 2 years in Harrisburg, Illinois. The first day, my phone was hooked up, and the baseball coach, who was 23 years old, called me and said, hey, you want to go to a party and meet some people tonight? So I said, heck yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So I'm at a party. The first girl I speak to happened to be a girl named Jill Brinkley. We talked for about 15 minutes. She asked me a bunch of questions. She was really interesting, and she was real interested in me. And I went back and talked to the group of guys, including the baseball coach, and I said, who is that? He said, oh, that's Jill Brinkley. Forget about her. She's taken. She's gone out with a guy with an engineering degree from the University of Illinois for 4 years. His family has a lot of money. She's taken. And so Jill and I worked at the same high school for 2 years, and we found ourselves trying to get one last beer out of a keg at a wedding of a mutual friend. And I said to her, when are you going to marry Steve? And she goes, I don't know. I said, just get married. Just get married. And I'll be damned, 9 weeks later, she was married. And she was married to me. So a very fast courtship, obviously. And we ended up having 4 kids. And we've been married for 40 years now. But I think it's important, too, that we don't act like everything's going to be perfect. Jill and I got divorced for exactly 365 days 10 years ago. We got divorced for 365 days. We got remarried on the anniversary, 1-year anniversary of our divorce. And I don't know many people who can do that. I know it takes a couple really strong people, people who are bold and are willing to apologize. It was all my fault. It wasn't her fault at all. Good people can do crazy, dumb things sometimes, and I have. So I think it's a good lesson that to really make it, you're going to have to be strong.